Okay, welcome back to Shmuel Aleph, Book of Samuel, the first book. And before I start, I want to just address a question that was given me by one of my followers, namely the Ventures of Diana. I hope you're saying your name right. And I had said last week that uh, David showed compassion to his enemies, and so we all learn from that, as Saul said to David, that anybody who shows compassion to his enemies will be rewarded, and you all get the reward for that, David. So Vengeance Diana said that, wait a second, we have a command from God to wipe out Amalek, and we're not supposed to show any compassion there. So if that's the case, why would David be rewarded for showing compassion? And the simplest answer is that when God tells us to do something, such as wipe out the people of Amalek, that's a biblical command. We have no choice, even if we don't agree, we don't understand the reason or the rationale as to what God's command is, we're obligated to follow through. When it comes to David, on the other hand, David was not commanded to wipe out Saul. He was not commanded to kill Saul. It was a judgment call on his part. And if Saul would have tried to kill him, so of course he could have defended himself, but otherwise he had no right to take the law into his own hands. That's the difference between Amalek, the command to kill Amalek, or anybody we had to wipe out, or the individual wiping out his enemy. I hope that answers your question. You had a lot of other nice questions, but that's not for this class. Okay, so now we're on chapter 25. And it starts off by saying, Vayamat Shmuel. So Shmuel had passed away, he died. V'yikbetzu kol Yisrael, and all of Bnei Israel, all of Israel, gathered, V'yispedublo, and they eulogized him, V'yikbaruhu, and they buried him. Beveto Barama, in his house. He must have had a burial spot there in Ramah where he was living. Vayakam David, and David rose up. And what happens? Ve'ered al Midbar Paran. He goes to Midbar Paran, the wilderness of Paran. Why didn't he stay in the area? He was in that place. And what was happening was he was afraid that people who were passing through En Gedi, where was around he was, that they would then tell Shaul. And even though he had survived Shaul the first time, so he doesn't know if Shaul is going to revert and want to trace him. So rather than let everybody know where he is holding up, what he does is he goes the other way, or he goes to the wilderness of Paran and hides himself there, and hopefully that will stop people from informing Shaul where he is, and the less David's name is mentioned to Shaul, the better off he's going to be. So that's how he holds. So what happens? Now we go to a different story, and remember, Shaul has passed away. Shmuel has passed away. Shaul has already said to David, in a fairly public manner, that he is going to be, is justified that he will be the next king. Shaul realizes that David is going to take over, seemingly giving him the nod for that 1 second. Nonetheless, we have the episode goes like this. Verse 2. V'ish b'ma'on, there was a man in Ma'on. Ma'on is never a place, it could mean dwelling, but it's the name of the place. Uma'aseh b'Carmel, and his possessions were in Carmel. V'ish gadol ma'on, and this man was very great. He wasn't a poor guy. He was extremely rich. Velot, and so much so that it testifies, Velot son shloshet alafim, that he had sheep that numbered 3,000, ve'elav izim, and he had 1,000 goats. Goes as you know, and he was going to he was sharing his sheep, Carmel, in Carmel. So we have a picture of this person who is fairly well-to-do, if not rich, if not majorly wealthy, and it sets the Torah, the Tanakh is setting this guy up for what's going to be. We have to understand that he's not poor, that he has 3,000 of sheep, 1,000 of goats, and he's cutting the hair off the goats. So what happens? Shema Ish Naval. His name was Naval. Naval is not a very nice word. It means disgusting, and that was his name. Why his parents named him Naval, I do not know. Maybe it was future. Maybe they understood the future, as it says in the Gemara, that when we give our kids names, that we have a bit of prophecy. that we have a spark of prophecy when we're naming our children, and the names that we have are really representative of what we're going to be. So sadly, the parents called him Naval, and that's what he was. He wasn't a nice guy. B'Shem Ishto Avigail, and the name of his wife was Avigail. Now it's interesting. What does it say? Va'isha Tovat Seichel, that she had a good mind. She understood things. She was of good sense, as they say. Bifat Tor, and she was a beautiful woman. If you think about Rachel, when it says Bifat Tor, Bifat Tor, I forget how it says, but it says Tovat Mar'ev Vifat So'ar. That is the great appearance and a beautiful woman. Here it's not saying those two terms, saying how beautiful she was. Rather, it was saying the other part, that she had a good sense, and she was also beautiful. Ve'ish and her husband, Ve'ish Kasha, V'ra Ma'alalim. This man was a hard, and his actions were horrible. And V'hu Kalibi, and we identify him as being from the tribe of Caleb, which was from the tribe of Yehuda. So really, he's a relative, to some extent, of David. I believe it's the cousin. I forget how they get there, but it's a cousin of David, because David's from Yehuda. Caleb is from the tribe of Yehuda. So you have that's connection. That's why David is in that area. David is in the land apportionment of Yehuda, and the rabbis tell us that most of Yehuda had accepted him as being the anointed. He is the next king. They're recognizing him in that fashion, and of course we know that Shmuel anointed him secretly, but nonetheless anointed him to be the king. So with those two approaches, David is going to be coming to his relative and asking for food. But let's see what happens. V'yishma David b'midbar, and David heard in the wilderness, he goes his Naval et Sano, that Naval was shearing his sheep. Vayishlach David asra na'arim. So David says, he sent 10 of his young men, or 10 of his servants, or people with him. Na'ar is such a hard thing to translate, because Na'ar can mean a young man. It could mean a servant. It could mean a weapons carrier. Na'ar does not. It could also mean a fool. In this week's parsha, next week in Parshat Miketz, where the officer of the wine steward is talking to Pharaoh. So he says, when describing Yosef, who was in jail with him, he calls him a Na'ar, and he meant to say that he was a fool. So Na'ar again has a very wide understanding of the word, but in this case, it seems more of his compatriots and underlings more than his straight-out servants. But nonetheless, David sent 10 of his young men. David, and so David says to his servants, Alu Carmela, go up toward Carmel, Uvatim el Naval, and come to Naval. Ush'altem lo b'shmi l'shalom, and y'all ask him in my name. I want to say, David ben Yishai said, how you doing? Because he should recognize me as his relative. He should recognize me in so many different manners, certainly as a king, since most people are accepting me in the tribe of Judah as king. So I'm coming with that sort of clout. V'martem kol l'chai, and you should say to him, so shall it be, so shall you live next year. V'yata shalom v'eidcha shalom, and you and your home should have peace. V'chol ashir l'cha shalom, and everything that you have should be peace. So he's giving him brachot. He's coming to him with a wonderful message of brotherhood, of blessing, and ultimately what he wants is food for the boys. He wants to share in the feast. So he's saying all on the side of just simple understanding of who we are, relatives, and we're working with you. How about allowing us to share in your feast? It says V'yata shemata, and now listen to me. Now I've heard Ki goes zimlach, that you are shearing the sheep. Ata Roma Shilacha, and now the shepherds that you have with you, Hayu Imanu, they are with you. Lo Hechalamnun, we have neither disgraced them. Below Nifkad Lehem Uma, now there was anything missing from them. Kol Yemei Yatom Carmel, all the days that were in Carmel, they had thieves, they had cattle rustlers, they had all these things going on. And what David is saying to Naval is, we were protecting you from afar. So since you have your servants, your shepherds, and they are sharing in your bounty, so we also want to share in your bounty because we also were of help. And he says, in case you don't believe me, Sha'al edna recha v'yagidu lach, to ask your servants, your shepherds, your servants, ask them if we were helping, and they will tell you. And let the men, these young men that I've sent, these 10 men, let them find favor in your eyes, which means feed them, please. Ki al yom tov banu, because we've come on your festival day. Anytime that people were sharing their sheep, and they made a feast for people around them, so that they would all be able to share in the happiness that the sheep had grown, that they could now have goat hair and so on and so forth. It was just a really good day for everybody in town, the rich and the poor at the same time. The rich wanted to share with their poor. So to not na edashirtim so yad chalevdecha. So please give. Now again, na can either mean please or now. So in English they want to say give now, but it could certainly be based upon how he's addressing Naval with a very he's addressing him in such a manner that he's not trying to pull rank. So you could say, please give, that which you find in the hands to your servants, and ultimately to your son, to your relative, in other words, David. Again, bincha can mean relative, it can mean son, it's like ach, but it's always a family relation that we're talking about. So what happens? That's David's speech. So David. So now the young men of David came, Vayedabru Naval, and they spoke all these words to Naval, Gechol Hadvar Me'ela, all the words b'shem David, in the name of David. Vayanuchu, and they rested. He gave Naval, let them come. He let them give the speech, and they rested. And then what happens is what it means. They rested. They wanted to drink, I believe they said. 1 second. I remember seeing that. So, right. Shavtu v'nachum midivreihem. They stopped from what they were saying. V'ludabru od. They didn't say any more. Period. So what it means, they rested according to Masuda's David, which is a nice thing to learn when you're learning Tanakh. It's probably the nicest running commentary in all of Tanakh. So what he explains is simply as they stopped speaking, and because they did their message, they did what they were told to do. So V'yan Naval answered of David, the servants of David. Now here it went from Naare David, which again could be many things, to it could be servants, it could be compatriots, it could be young men. And he says Avde, he sees them as servants of David. Vayomer, and he says to me, David, who is this David? How dare he come to me with this family relationship saying, I'm David? Ben Yishai, who's Ben Yishai? I don't really care about either one. Neither you nor your lineage are impressive to me. Why? Because, as the Malbim explains, you're rebellion against the king. You're just like everybody else. You don't like your master, so you want to break off the bonds and you want to do something. So I have no respect for that, and I'm not going to give you anything. Remember, we called him a hard guy. We called him a person who is bad deeds. And so there's really no hope for this the character that we've painted, because he doesn't care. You wanted to come to him for money. He's like the person, if you think back of the people of Sodom, you want to come to Sodom and you wanted something, they would kill you. So the same thing here. Naval is saying, I owe you nothing. You're worthless. You're a you're rebelling against the king. Leave me alone. He says, Hayom Rabu Avadim. Today, nowadays, there are many slaves, Hamid Partzim, even Pnei Adanav, who want to break away from before the master. And now, shall I take my bread and my water, Tivchati, and my slaughtering, that I am going to give to that I cook for my shearers. V'natati l'nashim, asher lo yadati, I'm going to give it to people I don't know. From where they are. Well, leave me alone. I'm not going to give you anything. I don't owe you anything. I'm not. You don't impress me. You claim you helped me. Who needed your help? I have all these servants anyway, and it's like you're like a gangster coming to me and saying that I protected you. I didn't ask for your protection. Leave me alone. David comes to Yud Beit 12. It says David's men, the young men of David, turned on their way, which means they didn't get anything to eat. That's what it's trying to say. And they went back and they came and they told everything to David. All these things to David. So what does David do? Verse 13 is where we're going to stop. Vayomer David said to his men, not his Na'arav, not his young men, not his servants, not using a totally different word, Anashav, to his men. Chigru ish el charbo, each man should guard, put on his sword. Yachru ish el charbo, and each man put on his sword. What was he doing? He was saying, look, this guy is, Naval is Mori B'malchut, since I'm the king, and people are recognizing that, and Shmuel anointed me, so really he's in a rebellion against me. And so we have to figure out, does this person deserve to die? So I'm putting it to a vote, as it were. So that's why he says, he says, Chigru ish et charbo, let each man gird himself with a sword. He's asking for a vote. He's starting with the lower person, the younger person, and heading all the way up. And what happens is, they all decide that he deserves to die for this. David, and finally David, the last one to make that, since he's a king, he had to wait. So he had to, then he girds himself with the sword. So along with David, you have a troop of approximately 400 men. And what happened to the others? Yashvu ala Kalim, the other 200 that he had with him, altogether 600, they're going to stay with the vessels that they already have. Otherwise, people would come and steal that away. So they don't want that to happen. And what you're seeing here is that David is starting to take over as king and start ruling in that capacity. And so when somebody now says, I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to listen to you. So now, instead of David being the one who is Morid Malchut, rebelling against a king, namely Shaul, his people in Judah are now rebelling against him. So he has to maintain control, and we'll see what happens next time. Thank you for watching. Please, if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. Thank you. Have a good Shabbos.